Hi students, in this video we'll discuss annotating assignments and prompts. And so in your course, you've gotten practice with annotating texts that you've been reading for your projects, but it's also important to annotate assignments and prompts that you receive in your IRW class, as well as your other classes that you are taking and will take in college. And so as we get instructions from our instructors, often an instructor will describe the most important things to focus on in an assignment or in a prompt, but sometimes you're given a prompt or an assignment in a course, and maybe there's not a lot of explanation on what to do or how to approach it. So it's best to annotate your prompt. And this is because annotating a prompt helps readers to actively read a text. So we're really focusing on what we're reading, just like we have when we read articles or websites for our projects. Annotating also encourages readers to identify the major requirements of a project or an assignment. It helps readers remember what they have read. It provides an opportunity to identify questions that readers may have, and it makes reviewing the text easier. So when we look closely at an assignment, at the instructions or the prompt, we really can focus on what we think is most important, what we need to remember from the instructions, and maybe some questions that we may have that we might want to ask our instructor. And so as you're annotating an assignment or a prompt, you should think about considering specific areas to annotate. And that includes the major requirements. So as you're reading the instructions, ask yourself, what are the major requirements? So what am I being asked to do, right? Am I being asked to summarize a piece of text? Am I being asked to compare and contrast texts that I've read in the class? Am I being asked to provide my own analysis of a text? Or am I being asked to do something else, right? Like, what am I being asked to do? What are the major requirements? We also want to ask ourselves, which concepts or topics are being assessed? And so an assignment or a prompt typically asks us to do something to show that we're understanding what we're learning in our class. And so what kind of concepts have you gone over in class, and how does that connect to the assignment you've been given? What kind of topics have you covered maybe in your textbook that connect to the assignment you've been given? And so we're really looking to see, what have we been learning, and how are we being asked to show our learning in this assignment? We also want to consider which sources or resources are necessary for this assignment. And so in the prompt itself, do we see anywhere where the instructor is telling us to review a specific chapter in our book, or to find our own resources outside of class? Are we asked to find sources in the library or sources that we find online? And so which sources do we need to find, or which resources should we already have read through or watched that are necessary for this assignment? We also want to make sure we know, when is the deadline, right? So when is this assignment due? Often in our classes, instructors will not accept late work. And so we want to be very mindful of when we need to turn in our assignment and how we need to turn it in. So are we submitting it in our online course? Are we turning it in class? Look for those details in your instructions. We also want to consider, what format should we use? And so are we asked to format the assignment in a particular way? For instance, many classes use MLA format, and some of the instructors will not accept assignments if they're not in the correct format. This is also true of citing our sources, right? So what kind of citation system are we using, and what is being asked of us? What resources can we use to review the formats we've discussed in class? And then finally, is any part of the assignment confusing? So if you see sections that don't make sense maybe to you, or you're not quite sure what you're being asked, you might mark those. If you have questions, you could jot those down in the margins. And so this could be an opportunity to meet with your instructor to ask your questions. You could visit the tutoring center to ask questions. But if something doesn't make sense to us, we don't want to just avoid it, right? Or just guess, reach out for help. It's always good to ask questions if you have them.